I leaned back in my office chair, staring at the lines of green code running across my monitor. 4 months of working until dawn were finally paying off. We actually did it, I whispered to myself. Did what, babe? Chloe asked, walking into my office with 2 mugs of coffee. She set one on my desk and leaned over my shoulder, her golden hair brushing against my cheek. The routing algorithm, I said, pointing at the screen. It's completely stable. The stress test cleared with 0 lag. When Sophia Hayes sees this demo on Friday, her venture capital firm will lock in the $3 million seed round. Chloe smiled, but her eyes flickered over the source code on my screen with a strange intensity. That's amazing, Lucas. So, the core framework is totally finished? Every security key and raw file is mapped out in the primary directory. Every single piece, I replied, taking a sip of coffee. I backed up the final build to our encrypted server 10 minutes ago. As head of operations, you've got full administrative clearance now anyway. We're in the home stretch. Right. Full access, she murmured. She pulled out her phone. It buzzed instantly in her palm. She shifted slightly, tilting the glass screen away from my view. Her thumbs moved with rapid, practiced speed before she slipped the device straight into her blazer pocket. Who was that? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Marcus from development? Just a spam caller, Chloe said quickly, giving me a quick, tight smile. Look, you've been glued to this desk for 12 hours. Why don't you head downstairs and grab us some dinner from the bistro? I'll organize the client pitch decks for Friday while you're gone. Are you sure? I asked, watching her face. I can just order delivery. No, go get some fresh air. You look exhausted, Lucas. Really, go. I hesitated but nodded, standing up from my chair. All right. Don't work too late. I grabbed my jacket and stepped out into the hallway. Halfway down the corridor, I realized I'd left my wallet sitting right next to my keyboard. Turning back toward the office, I walked silently on the carpeted floor. The heavy oak door to my office was cracked open an inch. I was about to push it open when I heard Chloe's voice. It wasn't her soft, gentle tone. It was sharp, secretive, and filled with an excitement I hadn't heard from her in months. I told you I'd handle it, Julian, she said softly into her phone. I froze, my hand hovering an inch above the door handle. My blood ran cold. Julian Vance. Her high school ex and the CEO of Vance Logistics, our primary rival. Is the raw code really that good? Julian's voice echoed faintly through her phone's speaker. It's revolutionary, Chloe whispered back, pacing near my desk. Lucas just uploaded the final framework to our primary server. It bypasses every standard routing delay on the market. If your company pitches this to Sophia Hayes tomorrow morning before Lucas gets his Friday meeting, her firm will sign Vance Logistics on the spot. And Lucas won't notice? Julian asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. He trusts me completely, Chloe said, laughing softly. He has no idea. I'm downloading the core directory to an external drive right now. I'm giving you the leverage you need to destroy his pitch before he even steps foot in Sophia's office. You're incredible, Chloe, Julian replied. Once this deal goes through, Vance Logistics takes over the market, and you'll be running operations right beside me where you belong. Just be ready at the restaurant in an hour, Chloe said. I'll hand you the drive personally. The call disconnected. Inside my chest, something vital shattered into pieces. Every shared dream, every late-night conversation, every promise we had made over the last 3 years disintegrated into dust. I stood frozen in the quiet hallway, my lungs burning as I forced myself to breathe evenly. I didn't burst through the door. I didn't scream. A cold, heavy calm washed over my panic, replacing my shock with razor-sharp clarity. I backed away silently, stepping down the hallway until I was far out of earshot. I walked straight to the building's server room at the end of the hall, pulled out my master keycard and swiped myself inside. The cool air of the server room hit my face as the machines hummed softly around me. I pulled up the administrator console on the central terminal, logged into the system and opened the real-time access logs. My heart pounded against my ribs as I watched the screen update. 20 hours 14 minutes and 2 seconds, user, seeing, access granted. Core algorithm v4.raw 20 hours 14 minutes and 45 seconds, user, seeing, initiating file transfer to external. There it was. Plain text on a black screen. Proof that the woman I loved was actively handing my life's work over to the man trying to ruin me. I rested my hands on the edge of the metallic desk, staring at the flashing cursor. I could revoke her administrative access right now with a single keystroke. I could block the transfer, run back into my office and throw her out onto the street. No, I whispered into the quiet air-conditioned room. If I stop her now, she'll just find another way to ruin me later. I pulled up the system command line, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I initiated a secret clone of our server environment. You want to give him leverage, Chloe? I muttered, setting up a second, isolated access log. Then I'm going to make sure you give him enough rope to hang himself. The server room door clicked shut behind Marcus Reed, my lead software engineer. He took one look at my pale face and static glare before glancing down at the administrative terminal. Lucas, what's going on? Marcus asked, stepping closer to the monitors. Why did you call me down here at 9 on a Tuesday night? Look at line 42 on the active administrative log, I said, my voice unnaturally flat. Marcus leaned over the console, pulling up his glasses. Access user. Chloe Bennett? She's transferring the entire raw root directory to an unencrypted flash drive. He whipped his head around to face me, his eyes wide. Wait, is she doing an off-site backup? No, I said, leaning back against the metal rack of humming servers. She's giving it to Julian Vance. What? Marcus gasped, clutching the desk edge. Julian? As in Vance Logistics? Lucas, that's impossible. She's your fiancée. She helped us build this startup. I stood outside my office 10 minutes ago, Marcus. I heard her on the phone with him, I said, feeling a fresh wave of cold betrayal wash over my chest. She's meeting him tonight. She told him this code will give Vance Logistics the leverage to steal Sophia Hayes' investment right out from under us. That ruthless snake, Marcus growled, slamming his fist onto the desk. We spent 18 months writing that framework. If Vance gets his hands on our optimization code, he'll rebrand it overnight and pitch it to Sophia before our Friday meeting. We'll be bankrupt. We won't be, I replied coldly. Because they aren't getting our code. Did you block her clearance? Marcus asked, his fingers instantly hovering over the keyboard. I can wipe her administrative credentials in 3 seconds. No, don't, I ordered, grabbing his wrist. If we revoke her access right now, she'll know I caught her. Julian will figure out another way to sabotage us, or they'll just lie their way out of it. I want them caught red-handed where they can't recover. Marcus blinked, stunned. Okay, so what's the plan? We swapped the payload, I said, looking straight into his eyes. Do you still have that experimental beta build we discarded last month? The one with the severe memory leaks and recursive logic loops. A slow, devious grin spread across Marcus's face. The build that looks perfectly stable on the user interface for the first 10 minutes, but quietly melts the back-end servers as soon as heavy live data hits it? Exactly that one, I said, my voice devoid of warmth. I want you to package that failed build, name it under our final production file tag, and overwrite the directory on her local cache before her download finishes. Make sure the exterior source code looks identical to our actual framework. If Julian tries to run a real-time system demo using that code, Marcus whispered in awe, the whole platform will cascade into total system failure right in front of whoever is watching. And since Chloe is handing it to him as verified, functional software, I added, she'll be signing her own professional execution. I'm on it, Marcus said, rapidly typing out command lines across the main console. Initiating local directory mirror, masking the file parameters, and done. The file she's copying to her external drive right now is officially our most toxic, unstable build. Good, I said, pulling my keycard from the terminal. I'm going back up to the office. Act normal, Marcus. Not a word to anyone. Good luck, Lucas, Marcus said quietly. Don't let her see you bleed. I walked back up the carpeted hallway, taking a deep breath to steady my pulse before pushing open my office door. Chloe was standing near my desk, rapidly pulling a sleek black USB drive out of her laptop. When the door clicked shut, she jumped, quickly jamming the drive deep into her designer handbag. Lucas, she gasped, placing a hand over her heart. You scared me. I thought you were downstairs getting dinner? The bistro was closed early, I lied smoothly, walking past her to sit in my leather chair. I looked up at her, watching the nervous sweat glisten along her hairline. Are you all right? You look jumpy. I'm just tired, she said, offering a practiced, tender smile that used to make my heart melt. Now it made my stomach turn. I was just finishing up the file organization like I promised. Everything is locked down tight. You really care about this company's future, don't you? I asked, looking her dead in the eye. Of course I do, babe, she said softly, stepping closer and placing her hands on my shoulders. We built this together. Your success is my success. You know I'd do anything to make sure we make it to the top, right? I know, I murmured, staring at the engagement ring sparkling on her finger, a ring I had taken out alone to buy her. You always do what's best for yourself. What was that? She asked, frowning slightly. I said we make a great team, I corrected, keeping my voice deadpan. Why don't you go home early tonight? You look like you have somewhere important to be. Her eyes lit up with hidden excitement. Are you sure? You won't mind finishing up here alone? Not at all, I replied, opening a blank document on my screen to fake being busy. Go ahead, Chloe. Don't keep your appointment waiting. You're the best, Lucas, she exclaimed, kissing my cheek. The smell of her perfume felt suffocating. I'll see you at home later tonight, okay? Don't stay up too late. I won't, I whispered as she grabbed her handbag and rushed out the door, her heels clicking rapidly down the hall. I sat in the silence of my empty office, wiping her kiss off my cheek with the back of my hand. I pulled up the server logs one last time on my monitor and watched the final entry update. 20 hours 42 minutes and 11 seconds. User, Siu. File transfer complete. Correnders over the MarsV4.raw. I leaned back, staring at the blinking green prompt. My love for her was officially dead, buried under the cold reality of her treason. Enjoy the gift, Chloe, I whispered to the empty room. It's going to ruin you. The morning sun filtered through my office blinds as Marcus dropped a fresh tablet on my desk. The headline on the tech blog screen was unmissable. Vance Logistics promises industry breakthrough ahead of Venture Summit. He's already moving, Marcus said quietly. Julian contacted Sophia Hayes' team at dawn. He's claiming his developers built a revolutionary optimization network. He moved faster than I expected, I said, leaning back. Chloe must have handed him the drive right after she left me. Before Marcus could answer, my office door swung open. Chloe walked in holding 2 iced coffees. Her eyes avoided mine for a split second before she forced a bright smile. Morning, Lucas, she said, setting a cup on my desk. Did you see the news about Vance Logistics? I just read it, I replied, watching her expression closely. Strange timing, isn't it? Julian's company was 6 months behind us last week. Chloe casually waved her hand, taking a seat across from me. Honestly, Lucas, maybe it's not that strange. Julian has a massive engineering team and twice our budget. Are we sure our system is really ready to compete with a corporate giant like that? What are you saying, Chloe? I asked, pretending to sound uncertain. We scheduled our pitch with Sophia Hayes for Friday. I know, babe, she said, reaching across the desk to squeeze my hand. I just care about you and I don't want you to get crushed. If Julian's software is already complete, going head-to-head right now might ruin our reputation. What if we delay our presentation? Just push it back a month so we can reevaluate. Her fake concern made skin crawl. She wanted me to delay our meeting so Julian could sign his deal first, securing his theft before I even walked into the room. Delay? I sighed, pulling my hand back and rubbing my temples to play the part of an overwhelmed founder. I don't know, Chloe. We've poured everything into this. If we pull out now, Sophia might walk away entirely. It's better to walk away temporarily than to fail publicly, she urged, her voice growing sharper, more insistent. Trust me on this, Lucas. I handle our operations. I know our limits. Let Julian take the first shot. I'll think about it, I lied softly. I just need some space to review the deployment logs today. Don't take too long, she warned, standing up with an arrogant tilt of her head. Time is running out. As soon as her heels clicked down the hall, I grabbed my coat and keycard. Where are you going? Marcus asked. To see Sophia Hayes, I said. Privately. An hour later, I was sitting in a high-rise conference room across from Sophia Hayes. The venture capitalist looked at me with sharp, calculating eyes as she placed her pen on the mahogany table. You requested an urgent off-the-record meeting, Mr. Miller, Sophia said, her voice cool and direct. This is highly unusual 2 days before your scheduled pitch. I'm here because Julian Vance approached you this morning, I said, sliding an encrypted drive and a thick non-disclosure agreement across the glass table. And I know what he offered you. Sophia raised an eyebrow, keeping her hands folded. Mr. Vance claims to have developed a proprietary algorithm that eliminates routing delays by 40%. That's a bold claim. One that matches your company's preliminary prospectus. It matches because the architecture he showed you was stolen from my server last night, I stated clearly. Sophia's expression hardened. That is a very serious accusation, Lucas. Do you have proof? Plug that drive into an isolated terminal, I said. I'm giving you full access to our genuine, fully functional system right now under NDA. Test it yourself. Compare the core framework structure to what Julian presented. But more importantly, look at the security logs attached. Sophia motioned to her technical analyst, who plugged the drive into a secure laptop. For 10 minutes, the room was silent except for the fast clicking of keys. The architecture is identical, the analyst finally whispered to Sophia. Except, the build Mr. Vance submitted earlier today has massive code anomalies hidden in the primary layer. It's unstable. Sophia leaned back, her eyes narrowing as she pieced the puzzle together. Julian Vance doesn't have the technical brilliance to write this. Someone gave it to him. My head of operations, I said, my voice steady despite the sting in my chest. Chloe Bennett. She transferred the file to him last night. But the software they think they stole is a rigged prototype. Sophia chuckled coldly, a sharp, dangerous sound. You let her steal a poison build? I let her sign off on what she believed was my life's work, I replied. Julian plans to sign your contract at the official corporate summit on Thursday, doesn't he? He's pressing for a public signing ceremony to steal your momentum, Sophia confirmed, a slow, impressed smile spreading across her face. He wants to embarrass you in front of the entire tech press. Let him, I said leaning forward. Go through with the ceremony. Let Julian and Chloe stand on that stage and guarantee that software under binding legal contracts. I want them both locked in before the trap springs. Sophia looked at me for a long moment, evaluating the cold determination in my eyes. She signed the NDA with a swift stroke of her pen. You have a dark streak, Lucas, Sophia said, sliding the paper back to me. I like that in a CEO. I'll see you at the summit on Thursday. The grand ballroom of the Summit Center was packed with tech journalists and venture capitalists. Bright camera flashes reflected off the glass tables as I walked toward my reserved seat in the back row. You look surprisingly calm for a guy whose company is about to get replaced, Marcus murmured, sitting beside me. I'm just waiting for the ink to dry, I replied, watching the main stage. Julian Vance stood near the podium, dressed in an expensive designer suit. Beside him sat his older brother Ethan Vance, the stern majority owner of Vance Enterprises. And right next to Julian, wearing a brilliant red dress, was Chloe. She was smiling broadly, taking photos with the press as if she were tech royalty. Julian cleared his throat into the microphone, attracting the entire room's attention. Welcome everyone. Today marks a massive milestone for Vance Logistics. We are officially partnering with Hayes Capital to launch our new proprietary logistics system. Ethan Vance adjusted his tie and leaned into his microphone. Our firm has guaranteed $3 million in immediate performance capital behind this network. We have full confidence in my brother's software. Chloe held her head high, scanning the crowded room until her eyes locked onto mine. She gave me a sympathetic, almost pitying look, tilting her head as if to apologize for stealing my life's work. I didn't blink. I just stared back, my expression completely blank. Sophia Hayes stepped up to the contract table, holding a black fountain pen. She glanced back at me briefly before looking at Julian. Mr. Vance, Sophia said, her voice clear and commanding through the sound system. Before we sign this exclusive buyout deal, I need absolute legal confirmation. Is this system fully operational, and do you take total liability for its back-end code? Absolutely, Ms. Hayes, Julian said proudly. Our system has been tested rigorously. We guarantee zero errors under live data processing. And who is your certified technical witness? Sophia asked, opening the heavy paper folder on the desk. Who is verifying under penalty of perjury that this architecture belongs exclusively to your firm? Julian turned and smiled warmly at Chloe. My new Chief Operations Officer, Chloe Bennett. She personally verified the root software directory. Chloe stepped forward, taking the pen from Sophia's hand. She looked down at the document, a flash of pure arrogance lighting up her face. Chloe, don't do this, I called out from the back of the room, raising my voice just loud enough to draw glances from nearby guests. If you sign that contract, there is no turning back. Julian laughed out loud into his microphone, shaking his head. Ignore him, Chloe. Lucas is just bitter because his small startup couldn't keep up with real innovation. Chloe turned her face toward me, her eyes cold and condescending. I'm sorry, Lucas, she said softly into the microphone, her voice echoing across the room. You just weren't ambitious enough for me. I have to look out for my own future. She pressed the pen firmly against the paper, signing her name in dark blue ink on the witness line. Right below her signature, Julian and Ethan Vance signed as the primary corporate executives. The moment the pen left the paper, Sophia's assistant quickly gathered the signed documents and placed them safely inside a leather briefcase. "It is done," Sophia declared into her microphone, her voice dropping all warmth. "The contract is legally binding. Vance Logistics is now bound by Clause 9, which mandates immediate live system demonstration upon execution." Julian smiled smugly, turning toward the back row to look directly at me. "I'd be happy to show the press what true power looks like. Watch closely, Lucas. You might learn something." "Go ahead, Julian," I said, leaning back in my chair and crossing my arms. "Show everyone what you bought." Chloe grinned, leaning over Julian's shoulder as he plugged his laptop into the main stage screen feed. "Launch the system live, Julian. Let's show everyone who really owns this market." "Initiating live core process now," Julian said, tapping the key with flourish. Marcus leaned toward me, checking his phone. "The load test just hit their stolen local cache," he whispered. "Countdown from 3, I answered quietly. Across the front stage, Ethan Vance leaned forward, watching the large display screen with a critical eye. "Julian, why is the primary CPU usage spiking to 99% instantly? Is that normal for a basic startup sequence?" It's just the initial data buffer loading, Ethan," Julian said, his smile wavering as his fingers began to fly rapidly across his keyboard. "It's totally fine." "Julian," Chloe whispered, her voice tightening with sudden nervousness as she looked at the red warning icons flashing on his monitor. "Why is the central database throwing memory leak alerts?" "Shut up, Chloe." Julian snapped under his breath, sweat breaking out across his forehead. "I'm fixing it." I sat back in the quiet room, watching the panic slowly bloom on their faces. The trap was set, the contract was signed, and there was no escape left for either of them. The huge projectors flashed violent crimson red as fatal system errors flooded the display screens above the stage. "Critical recursive logic loop detected. Database corrupted. Purging all active servers." "What is happening?" Ethan Vance bellowed, slamming his fist onto the table. "Julian, fix that right now. Our core company database is linked to that drive." I don't know." Julian shouted frantically, his hands shaking as he smashed random keys on his laptop. "The software is collapsing on itself. It's deleting our local backup files." "Julian, stop it." Chloe screamed, her face draining of all color as the room erupted into chaos. Journalists jumped up from their seats, aiming cameras at the red screens. "You said this code was foolproof. What did you do to it?" "What did I do?" Julian yelled back, turning on her with a vicious glare. "You handed me this drive, Chloe. You swore this was Lucas's completed primary algorithm." "It was," Chloe cried, her voice cracking with terror. "I copied it directly from his encrypted workstation." I stood up from my chair and walked calmly down the center aisle toward the stage, my steps measured and deliberate. Marcus followed right behind me, holding a black control tablet. "It wasn't my completed build, Chloe," I said clearly, my voice echoing through the podium microphone. "It was our failed, toxic prototype." The entire room went silent as all eyes shifted toward me. Julian stopped typing, staring at me in sheer horror. "Lucas." Chloe gasped, backing away from the table, her hands trembling violently. What are you talking about?" "Marcus, override the feed," I ordered calmly. Marcus tapped his tablet screen. The crashing red error screens vanished, replaced instantly by high-definition digital footprint logs displaying Chloe's full name, administrative IP address, and exact timestamps. "As you can all see on the main screen," I said, pointing up at the glaring logs, "at 8:14 p.m. 2 nights ago, Chloe Bennett used her administrative key to illegally extract a raw code directory from my startup's private server." The crowd gasped as reporters instantly began snapping photos of the wall-sized evidence. "She then transferred that stolen drive directly to Julian Vance," I continued, looking dead into Julian's panic-stricken eyes. "However, I caught her in the act. Before she finished her download, my lead engineer and I quietly replaced the primary build with an unstable, broken beta test." You set us up," Julian screamed, charging toward the edge of the stage. "You intentionally sabotaged my company." "You sabotaged yourself the moment you bought stolen intellectual property, Julian," I replied coldly. "You signed a binding contract 5 minutes ago guaranteeing software you didn't even write." Ethan Vance stood up slowly, his face twisted in absolute fury. He turned around and slapped Julian across the face with a loud crack that echoed through the ballroom speakers. "You complete fool." Ethan roared at his brother. You stole a broken file, brought it into our enterprise network, and just wiped out 30% of our firm's core data. Ethan, please? Julian begged, clutching his bruised cheek. I did this for us. I wanted to put Vance Logistics on top. You're finished, Julian? Ethan snarled, his voice trembling with anger. As majority owner, I am stripping you of your executive position immediately. You are terminated from Vance Enterprises. Security, throw him out of this building. Two heavy guards stepped onto the stage, roughly grabbing Julian by his arms and dragging him away as he kicked and shouted in desperation. Chloe stood alone on the platform, trembling as she looked toward me with tear-filled eyes. Lucas, please, she sobbed, taking a step down toward the podium. I made a mistake. Julian manipulated me. He promised me things. I didn't mean to hurt you. You love me, Lucas. I loved the woman I thought you were, I said softly, my voice devoid of any warmth or affection. That woman never existed. Sophia Hayes stepped up beside me at the podium, adjusting her microphone as she adjusted her sharp suit jacket. She glared down at Chloe with icy, uncompromising eyes. Miss Bennett, Sophia said, her voice dropping like an anvil in the quiet hall. You signed your name as the official legal witness on a fraudulent document, guaranteeing stolen, destructive property to my venture firm under penalty of perjury. Miss Hayes, please? Chloe wept, clutching her hands together. I don't have the money for lawyers. I was just trying to advance my career. Then you should have thought about your career before committing corporate espionage, Sophia replied brutally. Hayes Capital is pressing full federal fraud charges against you. My legal team will ensure you face maximum statutory damages and state prison time. No. Lucas, save me. Chloe shrieked as two police officers walked up the stage steps, pulling her arms behind her back to snap steel handcuffs around her wrists. Lucas, tell them to stop. Please. I turned my back on her, walking away as her desperate screams echoed out into the lobby. I didn't feel rage and I didn't feel joy. I felt the cold, clean relief of a man who had finally cut out the rot, ready to rebuild his life from scratch. The police escorted Chloe down the private hallway behind the main auditorium, her heels dragging against the marble floor. When she saw me standing by the glass elevators with Marcus, she broke away from the officers, collapsing onto her knees right at my feet. Lucas, please, she sobbed, clutching the bottom of my trousers with shaking, handcuffed hands. Julian blocked my number. He told the police outside that he barely knows me and that I acted entirely on my own. He abandoned you the second his money was threatened, Chloe, I said, looking down at her stained makeup and red, swollen eyes. Are you really surprised? I was stupid, she wept, looking up at me with desperate, pleading eyes. I got blinded by his promises. He told me we'd be running the biggest tech empire in the country. I didn't want to hurt you, Lucas. I swear I didn't. Please talk to Miss Hayes. Tell her to drop the charges. You handed him my life's work without blinking, I said, my voice deadpan and steady. You sat on that stage, looked me in the eye, and signed a fraudulent contract, just a stepping stone over my career. I reached into my inner jacket pocket, pulled out the velvet ring box I had brought with me and flipped it open. The diamond engagement ring caught the harsh fluorescent light of the hallway. Lucas, she whispered, her breath hitching in her chest as a tiny spark of foolish hope flashed in her eyes. You kept it? I brought it here to return the debt, I said softly. I took her right hand, slid the ring off her trembling finger, and dropped it into her palm, closing her fingers over it. Sell it. Use the money to hire a defense lawyer. You're going to need one. No, Lucas. Don't leave me like this, she screamed as the officer stepped forward, lifting her back to her feet. I gave you 3 years of my life. And you traded them away in 3 minutes for Julian Vance, I replied, turning my back on her as the elevator doors slid open. Actions have consequences, Chloe. Now you have to face yours alone. Lucas, please? Her hysterical cries echoed down the corridor until the heavy elevator doors clicked shut, plunging Marcus and me into total silence. Marcus took a deep breath, shaking his head. That was cold, man. But she deserved every bit of it. She made her choice, I said quietly as the elevator descended. How are the news feeds looking? Vance Logistics is done, Marcus reported, tapping his tablet screen. Their stock crashed 80% 10 minutes ago. Ethan Vance pulled all family assets out of the subsidiary, leaving Julian personally liable for the system damages. He's looking at complete personal bankruptcy by next week. And Chloe? I asked. Blacklisted nationwide, Marcus said. Her name is trending on every tech blog as a caution for corporate espionage. No technology firm will ever hire her again. The elevator chimed, opening into the sunlit main lobby. Sophia Hayes was waiting for us, flanked by her chief legal counsel and a team of assistants holding fresh leather folders. "Mr. Miller," Sophia said, stepping forward with a genuine, approving smile and extending her hand. "Now that the trash has been cleared off the stage, shall we conduct real business?" "I'm ready, Miss Hayes," I said, shaking her hand firmly. She motioned to her counsel, who handed me a thick document. "This is an exclusive $4 million Series A funding contract for your genuine routing system. Hayes Capital takes 20% equity, leaving you with full corporate control and ultimate authority." I signed my name clearly across the signature line, handing the pen back to her. "It's a deal." "You handled today with remarkable composure, Lucas," Sophia noted, her eyes sharp. "Most people would have let emotion ruin their judgment." "Betrayal is a great teacher, Miss Hayes," I answered smoothly. "It forces you to cut out the weakness before it destroys the structure." 2 hours later, Marcus and I stood inside our newly leased floor on the top tier of the Tech District skyscraper. The entire development team was gathered around, popping champagne bottles and cheering as the giant digital screens displayed our official live company launch. System status online. Live transactions, processing. Marcus walked up beside me, handing me a crystal glass filled with bubbling champagne. "To the real network," he said, clinking his glass against mine. "And to the real team." "To the future," I agreed, taking a sip. I turned away from the crowd, stepping up to the floor-to-ceiling glass window overlooking the vast, gleaming city skyline below. The evening sun was setting, painting the horizon in bright shades of gold and orange. 3 days ago I thought my world was over. I thought losing Chloe would destroy my drive and leave me broken. But standing here watching our software run flawlessly on the screens behind me, I felt lighter than I had in years. Chloe thought she was taking everything from me when she stole that drive. She never realized that by exposing her betrayal, she gave me the greatest gift possible. She cleared the rot out of my life before I built an empire on top of it. I smiled at my reflection in the dark glass, taking another sip of champagne. I was standing on my own 2 feet, stronger, smarter, and completely unstoppable.